The room fell silent as the blue light of the hologram flickered in the center of the United Nations Hall. Commander Eliza Martinez gripped the edge of her seat, knuckles turning white. The alien face on the projection looked almost bored as it delivered news that would change the fate of all humanity. "The vote is complete," said the alien representative, its voice translated into flat, emotionless English. "Earth is to be cut off from all galactic affairs, trade, and communication. You have 6 standard galactic months to cease all operations beyond your solar system." Eliza looked around the room. 200 world leaders and military commanders sat in stunned silence. 50 years of trying to fit into the galactic community had ended like this, with a simple announcement that Earth was no longer welcome. "On what grounds?" asked the UN Secretary General, his voice barely steady. The alien's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. "The official record states persistent cultural incompatibility and unpredictable behavioral patterns." The vote was carried by 97% of council members. Eliza noticed Admiral William Carter and Director Patricia Alvarez exchange a quick glance across the room. Their faces showed no surprise, only grim determination. They had expected this day might come. The hologram continued. "Your species will be allowed to maintain its home world and immediate solar system. Any human found beyond these boundaries after the grace period will be subject to immediate detention." "And if we refuse these terms?" asked the Secretary General. The alien's mouthparts clicked together. "Then the terms will be enforced by the combined fleets of the Galactic Council. We hope it will not come to that." The hologram flickered and disappeared, leaving the room in darkness for a moment before the lights automatically brightened. Chaos erupted. Some leaders shouted in anger. Others began urgent whispered conversations. A few simply sat in shock, staring at the empty space where the hologram had been. Eliza made her way through the crowd toward Admiral Carter, who was already heading for the exit with Director Alvarez. "You knew this was coming," Eliza said when she caught up with them in the hallway outside. Carter nodded. "We've been picking up signals for months. The Council has been afraid of us since we developed the new drive technology." "It's not just the technology," Alvarez added. "It's how fast we adapt, how quickly we solve problems. We make them nervous." "So what do we do?" Eliza asked. "Fight? We can't win against the entire Council." Carter shook his head. "No. We do what humans have always done when faced with hostile neighbors." He lowered his voice. "We leave." Alvarez pressed her palm against a hidden scanner on the wall. The hidden door slid open, revealing a secure command center where dozens of officers were already at work. "Welcome to Operation Exodus, Commander Martinez," said Alvarez. "Started as a contingency plan 5 years ago. Now it's our salvation." The wall screen showed thousands of spacecraft designs, resource allocation charts, and star maps with countless routes marked in red. "We've been quietly building colony ships for years," Carter explained. "Hidden factories in the asteroid belt, underwater facilities on Earth, bases on the far side of the moon." "How many ships?" asked Eliza, trying to process what she was seeing. "Enough for everyone," Alvarez replied. "Every human who wants to leave." "But where will we go? The Council controls most of the known galaxy." Carter smiled for the first time. "Most isn't all. The galaxy is bigger than they know. We've been mapping unexplored regions for decades. The Council expects us to beg, or fight, or surrender," said Alvarez. "They don't expect us to simply disappear." Eliza studied the star maps. "How long until we're ready?" "First ships leave next week," Carter said. "We've been moving key personnel and resources for months. The Council thinks they've given us 6 months to wind down operations. We'll be gone in 4. "And Earth?" Eliza asked. Alvarez's face hardened. "We leave it clean and empty. A silent rebuke to those who rejected us." Eliza took a deep breath. "Then we should get to work. 8 billion people won't move themselves." Outside the window, the sun set over New York City. Its people moved through their evening routines, not yet knowing that soon they would call the stars their home. Lieutenant George Blackwell stood at the large window of the observation deck, watching Earth grow smaller in the distance. The blue planet looked peaceful from here, its oceans and clouds hiding the massive evacuation happening on its surface. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council's decision, and humanity was already gone. "Beautiful, isn't it?" a voice said beside him. George turned to see an older woman in a civilian outfit. Her name tag read Dr. Laura Reed, Agricultural Division. "It is," George agreed. "I never thought I'd see it like this, getting smaller instead of bigger." The massive colony ship Horizon carried over 100,000 people. It was just one of thousands of vessels leaving Earth in what people now called the Great Departure. Some ships were headed to the outer reaches of the galaxy, others toward uncharted regions below the galactic plane. The Horizon was bound for a star system near what humans called the Perseus Arm, far from Council space. "Have you heard anything from the aliens?" Laura asked. George shook his head. "They're confused. Their observation posts report cities emptying, but they don't understand where everyone is going. Our ships are using the new stealth drives. They can't track us once we're past the solar system." An announcement came over the speakers. "All passengers please report to Orientation Room 3 for planetary briefing. Arrival at New Haven system expected in 6 standard months." The observation deck began to clear as people headed to their assigned areas. George remained, taking one last look at Earth. His family had lived in Boston for generations. Now that history was just a memory and some digital photos in his personal device. Lieutenant Blackwell to command deck. His comm unit buzzed. 5 minutes later, George entered the ship's control center. Captain Nancy Wilson was reviewing data on the main screen. "You called for me, Captain?" George asked. "Yes. We just received a final update from Earth Command," she said. "The last ships will depart in 3 days. Operation Exodus is right on schedule." "And the Council?" George asked. Nancy smiled, still debating how to implement the quarantine. They formed 3 separate committees to discuss enforcement protocols. "They have no idea we're already gone." The door opened, and Chief Engineer Frank Porter entered with a tablet in his hand. His expression was serious. "Captain, all ship systems are running at optimal levels, but I have a concern about our long-term supplies," he said. "What's the problem?" Nancy asked. "Nothing yet," Frank replied. "But according to these calculations, we'll need to stop for resources before we reach New Haven. There's a small star system here." He pointed to a spot on the star chart. "Uninhabited, but rich in minerals we'll need." Nancy studied the chart. "How long would a stop there delay us?" 2 weeks at most," Frank said. "But we'd be fully supplied for the rest of the journey." Nancy nodded. "Make the necessary course adjustments. I'll inform the passengers of the slight delay." George looked at the massive display showing all known human ships. Thousands of tiny dots spread out in all directions from Earth, like seeds scattered by a farmer. "It's amazing," George said quietly. "In just 6 months, we've moved almost the entire human race." Nancy's face grew serious. "The Council thought they were punishing us by cutting us off from their precious galactic community. Instead, they freed us to forge our own path." "Do you think they'll try to stop us when they realize what's happening?" George asked. "By the time they figure it out, it will be too late," Nancy replied. "Besides, they voted to keep us away from them. We're just being very thorough about it." Back on Earth, the last human cities were being systematically emptied. People took only what they could carry, leaving behind clean, empty buildings. No messages, no vandalism, no signs of anger. Just empty streets and silent buildings, growing cold as winter approached a planet without humans to notice it. In the council chambers, delegates continued to debate, unaware that the species they had voted to contain was already spreading throughout the galaxy, quiet as whispers in the dark. 5 years had passed since the Great Departure. Sophia Ramirez sat in her communications hub on the planet New Haven, surrounded by screens showing messages from human settlements across the galaxy. As Earth's former top communications expert, she now coordinated the vast network that kept humanity connected despite the enormous distances between colonies. Message from the Orion Group, called out her assistant, Alan Roberts. They've successfully established their third settlement. Population 6,000 and growing. Sophia nodded and marked the update on her star map. The display showed thousands of green dots, each representing a human colony. Unlike other species who settled in tight clusters, humans had spread far and wide. Some traveled to the dense star fields near the galactic core. Others ventured to the outer spiral arms, where stars were more distant from each other. A brave few even traveled perpendicular to the galactic plane, into regions no council species had ever explored. How many colonies does that make now? Sophia asked. Alan checked his data. Just over 3,000 confirmed settlements. Probably a few hundred more we haven't heard from yet. And still no contact from the council. None, Alan replied. Our listening posts near council space pick up their communications, but they're still confused. They've sent search parties to a few systems, but our colonies are either too well hidden or too far away for them to find. Sophia smiled. Each human colony followed its own path of development, but all shared one important rule: maintain absolute radio silence toward council space. Humans had not gone into hiding out of fear. They simply no longer considered the council relevant to their future. The door to the communications center slid open, and Governor Stephen Jackson entered. He looked tired but pleased. The new underground city sections are complete, he announced. Another 10,000 people can move in next week. New Haven was one of the largest human colonies with nearly 1 million residents. The entire city was built underground, invisible from orbit. From space, the planet looked uninhabited. Just mountains, forests, and oceans. The Council's scout ships had already passed by twice without noticing anything unusual. Any word from the research division? Sophia asked. Stephen nodded. They've made a breakthrough with the new drive system. Ships can now travel 3 times faster than before. We're sharing the designs with all colonies. The Council would be terrified if they knew how quickly we're advancing, Alan said. The Council is no longer our concern, Stephen replied. We've moved beyond them. A young woman rushed into the room, her face excited. Governor, the first babies born on New Haven have arrived. Twins, a boy and a girl. Stephen's face brightened. The start of the first true New Haven generation. What are their names? Daniel and Nicole Parker, the woman replied, both healthy and strong. Sophia turned back to her screens as the others celebrated. A message marked urgent had just arrived from a distant colony near the galactic core. Governor, she called. The mining colony at HD 187,298 reports they found something unusual. Ruins of an unknown alien civilization, much older than any council species. Stephen quickly joined her at the screen. Are they sure? Yes. The ruins contain technology far more advanced than anything the council has. And there's something else. She paused, reading further. The ruins have writings that appear similar to ancient Earth languages. The room fell silent as they considered the implications. So we might not be the first humans to reach the stars, Stephen said quietly. If these findings are confirmed, it changes everything we thought we knew about our history, Sophia replied. In that moment, they realized that leaving Earth might have been more than just an escape from the Council. It might have been the first step on a journey back to humanity's true origins among the stars. Across the galaxy, in thousands of new homes, humans continued to build, explore, and grow. Free from the Council's rules and limitations, humanity was beginning to discover its true potential, and perhaps its true past as well. Cerulean scientists Qatar moved carefully through the empty valley on the uninhabited planet. Something was wrong. 6 months ago, this valley had been untouched, pristine. Now the ground showed clear signs of heavy mining operations, yet there was no equipment, no buildings, no waste. Just the clean cuts in the rock face where something, or someone, had removed large amounts of valuable minerals. "Are you recording this?" Sktar asked his assistant. "Yes, Professor," the younger Xerillian replied. "But I don't understand. Council records show no approved mining operations in this sector." Sktar touched the rock wall, feeling the smooth-cut surface. "These are not natural formations. Something was here." Back on their research vessel, Sktar reviewed similar reports now coming in from across the galaxy. An asteroid field in the Dendron system, completely stripped of rare metals. An abandoned outpost on the moon of a gas giant, showing clear signs of human technology. A network of tunnels on a frozen planet near the edge of Council space, tunnels that hadn't existed during the last survey. "It's the humans," Sktar said finally. "They didn't just leave their planet. They're gathering resources." The Council chamber was in an uproar. 20 years had passed since Earth's quarantine, and the humans had seemingly vanished. Now, evidence of their activities was surfacing across the galaxy. Council investigator Philonia, a tall blue-skinned being from an aquatic world, stood calmly before the angry delegates. "The evidence is clear," she said. "Humans have established operations throughout Council space and beyond. They are mining, building, and exploring at a scale we've never witnessed before." "How is this possible?" demanded the Vargan representative. "Our patrols should have detected them. The humans have developed stealth technology beyond our sensors' capabilities," Philonia explained. "They come and go like ghosts, taking what they need and vanishing." "What are they building?" asked the Council leader. Philonia displayed holographic images of the mining sites. Based on the types and quantities of resources they're gathering, they're constructing something massive, something that requires enormous amounts of rare metals and energy-conducting materials. "A weapon," suggested one nervous delegate. "Unknown," Philonia replied. "But the scale is unprecedented. They're not just building ships or stations. This is something much larger." On the human colony world of New Horizon, Chief Scientist Peter Martinez supervised the final assembly of the prototype. The massive ring-shaped structure floated in space above the planet, nearly 20 kilometers in diameter. "Power systems at 98%, reported his assistant, Linda Hall. "Quantum field stabilizers holding steady." Peter nodded, his eyes never leaving the display. 20 years of research and development had led to this moment. If it worked, humanity would take a leap forward that the Council species couldn't imagine. "Begin the test sequence," he ordered. The giant ring began to glow with blue energy. At its center, space itself seemed to ripple and fold. "Field is stable," Linda reported. "Sending through the test probe now." A small unmanned vessel moved toward the center of the ring. As it reached the rippling area, it suddenly vanished. The control room was silent for 10 long seconds. "Probe has arrived at target coordinates," Linda finally announced, her voice shaking with excitement. "Transit time, 0.3 seconds." Peter closed his eyes in relief. It worked. The gateway had sent the probe instantly to another human colony 50 light-years away. A journey that would take conventional ships weeks had happened in less than a second. "Send the signal," Peter said. "Tell all colonies to begin construction of their gateway rings." Across the galaxy, human settlements received the message. The network they had been preparing for 2 decades could now become reality. While the Council worried about what humans might be building, humanity had already created something that would make them independent of the traditional space lanes forever. A transportation network that would connect all human worlds instantly, regardless of distance. The Council had forced humanity to leave. Now, humans would never need to come back. The unmarked ship entered Council space quietly, following all proper protocols. Its simple design gave no hint of its origins, but the Council border patrol still approached with caution. No unregistered vessels were allowed in this sector, especially not approaching the sacred space of the Galactic Assembly. "Unknown vessel," Identify yourself and state your purpose," the patrol captain demanded over the communication channel. A calm, elderly human voice responded. "This is John Russell, former diplomat of Earth. I request an audience with the Galactic Assembly." Alarms sounded throughout the council station. In 30 years, no human had officially entered council space. The appearance of one now, especially a diplomat, caused immediate panic among some species and cautious curiosity among others. 6 hours later, John Russell stood in the center of the Galactic Assembly chamber. His hair was white now, his face lined with age, but he stood straight and dignified. He was one of the few humans alive who remembered Earth as home. "Members of the Assembly," John began, "I come not to protest our banishment, nor to request its reversal. I come with an invitation." Murmurs spread through the chamber. This was not what they had expected. 30 years ago, you voted to remove humanity from galactic affairs. We accepted your decision and departed. Now, I represent the Terran diaspora, a coalition of human worlds and settlements across the galaxy. John activated a small device. A holographic map appeared, showing thousands of points of light scattered across the galactic image. "These are current human settlements," he explained, "but we are not alone. We have encountered other species beyond council borders, species who either left the council voluntarily or were never invited to join." The map changed, showing different colored lights mixed with the human settlements. "Together, we have formed a new association of worlds. Not a governing body like your council, but a loose federation based on principles of non-interference and mutual defense." The assembly leader, a tall insectoid being, leaned forward. "Are you declaring opposition to the council, human?" John shook his head. "No. We have no interest in conflict. I am here simply to provide information. Several former council races have already chosen to join our federation. Others have opened diplomatic channels. I leave these coordinates for any who wish to establish relations with us." He placed a small data crystal on the platform before him. "That is all. We respect your borders and ask only the same in return." As John turned to leave, a Vargan delegate called out, "Wait. What do you call this federation of yours?" John paused and smiled slightly. "We simply call it the diaspora, a gathering of the scattered." On his ship, preparing to depart council space, John met with his aide, a young diplomat named Kevin Grant. "Do you think they'll follow us?" Kevin asked. John looked at the tracking system. 3 council ships were already preparing to follow his vessel back to the coordinates he had provided. Of course, curiosity is universal. They'll expect to find a struggling group of human colonies, still bitter about their banishment. What they'll actually discover will change everything they think they know about us. Kevin checked the ship's communication system. "We've received confirmation. The gateway is ready for our return. Should we use it?" John considered for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, let them see what we've built." It's time they understood that humanity never needed their permission to thrive among the stars. As the council observation ships watched from a distance, John's vessel approached what appeared to be empty space. Suddenly, a massive ring structure shimmered into visibility, its edges glowing with blue energy. The center of the ring rippled like water, and John's ship moved toward it. In an instant, the human vessel vanished. The council observers frantically checked their instruments. The ship was simply gone. No energy signature, no warp trail, nothing to indicate where it had gone or how. One of the stunned council captains broke the silence. "Follow them." The lead ship hesitated, then moved forward into the unknown. The age of isolation was ending. For better or worse, humanity and the council were about to reconnect on very different terms than before. The council investigation team stepped off their ship onto what appeared to be a normal landing platform. Captain Jorel, the team leader, had expected to find a small collection of struggling human colonies. Instead, they had emerged from the gateway into a massive space station orbiting a blue-green planet. Dozens of ships of various designs moved smoothly through the space around them. "Welcome to New Alexandria," said a human woman who waited at the edge of the platform. "I'm Security Officer Lisa Henderson. I'll be your guide during your visit." Jor-El and his team followed her into a large, bright corridor, filled with beings of different species. Some were council races, but others were completely unknown to the investigators. "This station serves as a hub for 37 nearby systems," Lisa explained. "Most are human colonies, but 12 belong to our partner species. 37 systems connected to just this hub," asked Jor-El's science officer in disbelief. Lisa nodded. "This is one of our smaller hubs. The central nexus connects over 200 systems directly." She led them to an observation deck overlooking the planet below. Cities gleamed along coastlines and river valleys, their designs unlike any council architecture. "That's New Alexandria Prime," Lisa said. "Population 8 million. Established 25 years ago." "How is this possible?" Jor-El asked. "Your people left Earth with nothing but colony ships." Lisa smiled. "Not nothing. We left with our minds, our determination, and our freedom from council restrictions." She activated a wall display showing a map of what the humans called the Diaspora Network. Thousands of systems were connected by lines representing the gateway system. "The truth is, Captain Jor-El, humanity never intended to join the galactic community as subordinates. We were exploring space long before the Council found us." "What do you mean?" "Earth had just achieved basic spaceflight when the Council made contact," said one of Jor-El's team. "Official Earth governments, yes," Lisa confirmed, "but certain human groups had already been traveling the stars for generations. The Council contact merely accelerated our plans." Jor-El's team exchanged concerned looks. This contradicted everything in the Council records. Lisa continued, "When the Council voted to banish us, they actually did us a favor. Instead of fighting Council bureaucracy, we focused on building something new." She led them to a transportation hub where people stepped onto platforms and vanished instantly. "Our gateway technology makes Council hyperspace lanes obsolete. While your fastest ships take weeks to cross the galaxy, we can do it in seconds." "Why are you showing us this?" Jor-El asked suspiciously. "Aren't you worried we'll report back to the Council?" "We're counting on it," Lisa replied. "The time for secrecy is ending. We want the Council to understand what we've built." She took them to a diplomatic center where representatives from dozens of species discussed trade agreements and scientific exchanges. "The real reason humans spread so far and thin wasn't from fear," Lisa explained. "It was strategy. We established connection points across the galaxy, creating a transportation network that unites worlds the Council never reached or neglected." "Is this a challenge to Council authority?" Jor-El asked directly. Lisa shook her head. "Not a challenge, an alternative. The galaxy is vast enough for different approaches to coexist." As their tour concluded, Jor-El realized the full implications of what he'd seen. Humanity hadn't been weakened by their banishment. They had used it to build something unprecedented. "Your Council thought they were containing a problem," Lisa said as they prepared to depart. "Instead, they freed us to pursue our own vision of galactic society, one without the hierarchies and restrictions that limit Council space." Jor-El looked at the data his team had collected. It would shock the Assembly. The humans they had dismissed as troublemakers had created a thriving network that already included several former Council worlds. "When you return," Lisa said, "tell your leaders this. We didn't leave the galactic community. We're building a better one." As Jor-El's ship entered the gateway for the return journey, he wondered if the Council would understand what was happening before it was too late. The balance of power was shifting, not through conflict, but through innovation. The species they had banished had reshaped the stars while they weren't looking. The emergency alarms echoed through the Council assembly chamber. 50 years had passed since Earth had been emptied, and now the Council faced its first true existential threat. The holographic displays showed scenes of destruction from across Council space. Strange crystalline ships moved through settled systems, consuming entire worlds. These silicon-based entities had emerged from deep space 6 months ago, and Council defenses were crumbling before them. "The Vargan homeworld has fallen," reported the defense coordinator. 3 billion refugees are fleeing to neighboring systems. The assembly leader looked at the strategic map in horror. 4 major Council worlds had already been lost. 6 more were under direct attack. The Council's most powerful warships had proven ineffective against the crystal ships. "We have no choice," the leader said finally. "We must attempt to contact the human diaspora. Their gateway technology might help evacuate threatened worlds." Hours later, the Council's most advanced communication system directed a message toward the coordinates John Russell had provided years earlier. The response came almost immediately. "This is Admiral Ryan Kennedy, commander of the United Terran Defense Fleet. We've been expecting your call." The assembly chamber fell silent as a holographic image appeared. A human male in a simple dark uniform stood before them, his expression serious but not unkind. "You've been expecting this?" the leader asked. Admiral Kennedy nodded. "We've been tracking the crystal entities for nearly 15 years. Our observation posts throughout the uncharted regions detected their approach long ago." "You knew this threat was coming and said nothing," demanded the Vargan representative, his voice shaking with anger. "We attempted to warn you 3 times. Kennedy replied calmly. "Each time, your border patrols turned our messengers away, citing the banishment protocols." The Council members exchanged uncomfortable glances. Those protocols had been strictly enforced until very recently. "Can you help us?" asked the leader directly. Kennedy studied the Council members for a long moment. "Yes, but with conditions. The diaspora will open its gateways to evacuate threatened worlds and deploy our defense fleets to contain the crystal entities. In return, the Council must formally recognize the diaspora as a sovereign entity and permanently revoke Earth's banishment." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some saw this as extortion, others as a reasonable request. Additionally, Kennedy continued, "All races currently under Council protection will be given the choice to remain with the Council or join the diaspora." "That's outrageous," shouted one delegate. "You're using this crisis to break apart the Council." Kennedy shook his head. "We're offering freedom of choice, something the Council has rarely provided its member races." The leader raised a hand for silence. "How effective are your defenses against these entities? We've lost our most advanced battleships with barely any impact." In response, Kennedy transmitted battle footage showing diaspora vessels engaging the crystal ships. The human ships moved with impossible speed, their weapons causing the crystal structures to shatter and collapse. "Our quantum destabilizers target the unique molecular structure of the entities," Kennedy explained. "We've successfully defended 12 systems already." The leader conferred quietly with the senior delegates. They had no real choice. Without the diaspora's help, billions more would die. "We accept your terms," the leader said finally. "The banishment of Earth is hereby revoked. The diaspora will be recognized as a sovereign entity within galactic space." Kennedy nodded. "Gateway coordinates are being transmitted to your emergency channels now. Evacuation ships will arrive within the hour. Our defense fleets are already moving to engage the crystal forces in the Procyon and Sirius sectors." As the transmission ended, one elderly council member spoke quietly. 50 years ago, we thought we were containing a danger by banishing humans. Instead, we may have ensured our own survival." Throughout Council space, massive gateway rings shimmered into existence. Diaspora evacuation ships poured through, bringing hope to worlds that had been facing certain destruction. What the Council had once feared had become their salvation. The great galactic experiment was entering a new phase, not through the Council's careful planning, but through humanity's unexpected response to rejection. Captain Natalie Hughes stood on the bridge of the Terran vessel Reconciliation as it entered orbit around a blue-green planet, Earth. 100 years had passed since humanity had left their birthplace behind. Now, they were coming home. "It's beautiful," said her first officer, Eric Miller. Cleaner than in the old images. Natalie nodded. A century without human industry had allowed Earth to heal. Forests had reclaimed abandoned cities. Oceans had cleared of pollution. Wildlife had returned to areas long dominated by humans. Preliminary scans show air quality is better than pre-Exodus levels, reported Science Officer Carol Green. Radiation levels normal. The planet has recovered remarkably well. Through the viewports, Natalie could see other ships in orbit, vessels from 50 different species, both former council members and diaspora allies. Today marked the signing of the Galactic Concordat, a new agreement that would reshape relations throughout known space. "Transport is ready, Captain," Eric said. "The delegation is waiting." 30 minutes later, Natalie stood among the partially restored grounds of the old United Nations building in New York. Vegetation had claimed much of the structure, but the main assembly hall had been carefully restored for today's ceremony. Representatives from all participating worlds took their places in the hall. Some were former enemies, others long-standing allies. The Crystal Entity crisis had been contained 3 years earlier through joint Diaspora Council operations. Now both groups sought a more permanent solution to their coexistence. Elder Jorel, once a council investigator and now the assembly leader, took the central podium. Beside him stood Admiral Sam Rivera, the current leader of the diaspora. 100 years ago, Jorel began, the old council made a decision based on fear. They saw humanity as a threat to be contained. Today, we acknowledge that was a mistake. Admiral Rivera nodded. And humanity made choices too. Rather than fight or beg for inclusion, we forged our own path among the stars. Both sides have learned valuable lessons. Together, they activated a holographic display showing the text of the Galactic Concordat. Its terms were simple but revolutionary. Earth would become a neutral diplomatic zone, protected and administered jointly by all signatories. The old council would dissolve, replaced by a more equitable assembly where all species had equal representation. Gateway technology would be shared, connecting all worlds regardless of political affiliation. Each world would maintain its own laws and customs, but a small set of common principles would ensure basic rights for all sentient beings. With this agreement, Jorel said, we end a century of division. One by one, the representatives approached to add their signatures or equivalent marks to the document. Some did so eagerly, others with reluctance, but all recognized the necessity of the moment. As the ceremony concluded, Natalie walked through the grounds with an elderly human diplomat named Daniel Parker, one of the first children born on New Haven after the Exodus. "Did you ever think you'd see Earth?" Natalie asked. Daniel smiled. "I never expected to stand on the homeworld. My parents told me stories, but seeing it for myself." He paused, touching the bark of an oak tree that had grown through what was once a concrete plaza. "It feels like completing a circle." Near the entrance to the grounds, workers were installing a simple monument, a plaque of polished stone bearing the words that had become humanity's unofficial motto during the Exodus. "We didn't wait to be asked twice." "What happens now?" Natalie asked. "Now we build something better," Daniel replied. "Not just for humans, but for all species. The galaxy thought getting rid of us would solve their problems. Instead, it forced everyone to find a better way forward." In orbit above them, ships from across the galaxy moved in peaceful patterns. Some headed back to their homeworlds through the new gateway network. Others arrived, bringing more representatives and observers to witness this historic moment. The stars had once seemed a barrier, then a refuge, and now they were becoming a shared home. The story that began with rejection was ending with something no one had expected. A true community of worlds, built not on dominance, but on respect for difference, and a commitment to mutual progress. Humanity had been cast out. They returned not as conquerors, but as architects of a new galactic order.